Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Today is Chaf Ches Nisan. Today is the 13th day of the Yomer. We are going to learn Sotah Daf Yud Gimel. We left off yesterday. Sotah Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. We are 8 lines from the top of the Amud by the two dots Yosef Zocha v'Chulu. So today we're going to have three sugyas. It's split into three. We have the sugya of Yaakov Avinu's burial that was mentioned in the Mishnah, because Midah Keneged Midah, about how Yosef buried Yaakov Avinu. Yosef was the greatest because Moshe buried him. Moshe was the greatest. The Eibishter buried him. So that was in the Mishnah. So we're going to first talk about Yaakov Avinu's burial, that Yosef buried his father. Then we're going to talk about Yosef himself. And then we're going to get into Moshe, the sugya of Moshe's passing. So here we go. Yosef Zacha v'chulu. Yosef merited that he buried his father. Who's greater than Yosef? That none other than Moshe Rabbeinu exerted himself to bury Yosef. So now we're going to darshan psukim and parshas Vayechi regarding Yaakov Avinu's burial. So So just to refresh what happened in the beginning of parshas Vayechi, Yaakov Avinu was very sick, and he calls Yosef and he makes him swear that he's going to bury him in Maras Machpelah. And then once again before he passes away, and that's what happens after Yaakov Avinu passes away. Yosef gets permission. He brings Yaakov up to Eretz Yisrael, and there's a whole big ceremony that happens, which we're going to talk about today. And Yaakov gets buried in Maras Hamachpelah, and they come back. So that's the general outline of the story. We're going to go through some details. So when we're talking about the story, it says that Vayal Yosef l'Beresaviv, Yosef went up to bury his father, went up to Eretz Yisrael, because Mitzrayim is lower and Eretz Yisrael is higher up. Eretz Yisrael is hilly. Vayalu itoy kalavdei parei v'gomer, all of Parei's servants went up together with him. But then in the end of the story, it says that all of Yosef's family, all of his brothers, and all of his father's family. Sorry, I take that back. When they're going up, it says first that Parai's servants went up with Yosef. Then it says that all of Yosef's family went up. But then in the end of the story, when they're coming back, it says that Yosef came back together with his brothers. And then only later does it say, and everyone that went up together with him to bury his father. So basically, when they're going to bury the father, when they're going to Eretz Yisrael, it first mentions Parai's servants, and then it mentions the brothers. After they're coming back, it first mentions the brothers, and then it mentions Parai's servants. Why does it change the order? So Rabbi Yechanan says, Rabbi Yechanan, in the beginning, Yisrael, before they saw during the funeral procession the honor that's given to Yisrael and to his whole family, so they didn't treat them with respect. And Taka, Parai's family, went in the front. But in the end, once they saw the glory and the respect to Yisrael, as we're going to see in a moment, they started to respect them and they let the brothers go first. And how do we see that they respected them? It says in the pasuk in Parshas Vayechi that they're on their way to Eretz Yisrael, and it says they came to the threshing place of the thorns. They came to the threshing floor of the thorns. And it says over there that there was a big eulogy over there. When they sat Shiva over there, and there was a whole big mourning that went on over there. And ad kedei kach that the natives of that land saw how much the Egyptians were crying by Gerin Ha'atad, that they called that place Avil Mitzrayim, the mourning of Mitzrayim. Adayim Azeh, says the Torah that's what it's called. So there was this big eulogy that happened in Gerin Ha'atad. But first of all, Gerin Ha'atad, the threshing floor for the thorns. You don't thresh thorns. What's going on? Do thorns have threshing floors? So Amar Rababo says Rababo that what happened over there, Melamed, teaches us Sheikifu Kisarim La'arein Shel Yaakov, that Yaakov Avinu's coffin was surrounded by crowns, just like a threshing floor, Shemakifim Loi Atad, that they surround it with thorns in order to make sure that it's secure. They surround thorn bushes around the threshing floor. So too by Yaakov Avinu's coffin, it was surrounded with crowns. Why was it surrounded by crowns? Because by this whole funeral procession in Gerin Ha'atad came Esav's children, and Yishmael's children, and Keturah's children, Yaakov Avinu's Avram Avinu's other wife. And what happened? And Tona, we learned in a brayso that Kulam Limilchama Bo, they all came to wage war on the Yidden. Once they saw that Yosef, who was the second in command in Egypt, this much of a guy, and he had his crown hanging on Yaakov Avinu's coffin. So all of these chevra took their own crowns. They saw how respectable this man was. So they all took their own crowns and put it on Yaakov Avinu's coffin. And Tana, the Brisa taught that Shleishim v'Shisha Ksarim Nitlu Ba'arin Yaakov, that at the end of the whole story there were 36 crowns hanging on Yaakov Avinu's coffin. And what were the 36? So Rashi says, yeah, Yosef's crown is one. 12 of Yishmael's princes, the Chevra that came from Yishmael, that's 13. V'chav Gimel Alufim Nimnu be'Esav, and the 23 chieftains from the family of Esav that are counted in Parshas Vayishlach. So altogether, you have 36 crowns hanging on Yaakov Avinu's coffin. So that is the covenant that the Egyptians saw that was being given to Yisrael. So they all started to honor his children, and they went in the back on the way back to Mitzrayim. Then says the Torah that by Geirin Ha'atad by Yispedusha Mispeid Gadol the Kavin Moed, they eulogized over there a great eulogy, a very heavy eulogy, this great, awesome eulogy. So Tana, the Brisa taught that Afilu Susam Vafilu Chamer, even the horses and even the donkeys were crying. So now they continue on their journey. They get to Maras Machpelah to bury Yaakov Avinu. So Esav all of a sudden comes Akib, and he's stopping this procession. Amar Lahen, he tells the Chevra, Mamre Kiryas Arba hi Chevra, and the Torah says, also in Parshas Vayechi, that Mamre, which is the plains of Mamre, which is where Maras Machpelah was, Kiryas Arba, the village of the four, hi Chevra, and that is Chevron. So Maras Machpelah is called four. Why? Because there's supposed to be four couples buried in Maras Machpelah. If Amar Yitzchak says, Kiryas Arba Zug Esayu, it was four couples. Adam v'Chava is one. Avram v'Sara is two. Yitzchak v'Rivka is three, and Yaakov v'Leah is the fourth one. You have four different couples. So it says Esav, there's only supposed to be four couples there. At that moment already, Leah had already passed away, and Yaakov had buried Leah in Maras Machpelah. So covered the Leah b'didei. It's supposed to be that you have Adam Chava, Avram, Yitzchak v'Rivka, and then it should be Yaakov and Esav, me and my brother. However, Yaakov decided to fill up his portion with Leah. So the remaining plot over there, the last grave, the eighth grave is for me. Behind the parish, the last remaining grave, Didi, who is mine, says Esav. So Amrule, the brothers, the sons of Yaakov, tell Esav, Zevinta, Yaakov already bought it from you. So Amar Lahu, so he says to them, Nihi dizvinu b'chirusa, Shitusa mi zvini. Esav says it's not true. Yaakov bought my firstborn rights, but he didn't buy my inheritance b'chlal. But when it comes to inheritance, so the firstborn gets a double portion, but all the other brothers also get a portion from the inheritance. The firstborn just gets more. So he got the firstborn, he gets double, but since you only have two, you can't give the remaining one to the firstborn, because then I'm left with nothing. So Amruleh, the brothers told him, no, in Yaakov Avinu still, he did buy even your other portion of Maras Machpelah, like it says in the pasuk in Parshas Vayechi, the Kivri Asher Karisi, Yaakov Avinu is telling the children, in my grave, which I have bought for myself. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon, the son of Yotzadok, when it says Asher Karisi, that I was Koira, so Kira means that I bought it. Kira, because in the little cities across the ocean, in another language, the word Mechira, the word for selling, is Kira. So that's what Yaakov was saying in that other language. Karisi means I bought. So Amar Lahu, so says Esav, if that's what you claim, Havuli Igarta, bring me the sale document, the document of sale. Amrule, the brothers told him, Igarta ba'ar the Mitzrayim. We can't. The sale document is in Mitzrayim. But Esav wasn't letting them in, so they said, Uman Nazel, who's going to go get the document from Mitzrayim? So Nazel Naphtali, let Naphtali go. The Kolil ki Yalta, because he is as swift as a gazelle. The Siv says in the pasuk in Parshas Vayechi, where Yaakov Avinu was benching the Shevet of Naphtali, it says Naphtali Ayola Shlucha. Naphtali is a deer, which is not a deer, a gazelle, which is sent and running, flying around. And I say Imre Shofar, who gives pleasant words. So Rababo says Rababo, I'll take Imre Shefer. Don't read it, Imre Shefer, pleasant words. Ella Imre Sefer, the words that are written in the document that he went to Mitzrayim to go get the document of sale of the last plot of Maras Machpelah. Meanwhile, says the Gemara, Chushim bereded Dan Taman Hava. Chushim, who was Dan's son, was standing there. Dan had one son, and his name was Chushim. The Akiran le'udne, and he was hard of hearing. He wasn't able to hear. So Amar Lahu, he tells the Chevra who were there, my high, what's going on? Why did we stop the procession? Amruleh, they told Chushim, come Akev Hai, this guy Esav is stopping the procession. And Ada Asi Naphtali married the Mitzrayim until Naphtali is going to be able to come back from Mitzrayim. So Amar Lahu says Chushim, the Ada Asi Naphtali married the Mitzrayim, hey, me Abba Mutal Bebizoyon, until Naphtali comes back from Mitzrayim, my grandfather is going to be lying here in shame. So Shakal Kulfa, he takes a stick, Umachia Aresha, he bopped it on Esav's head. Natran Ene, Esav's eyes popped out, the Naflu Akara de Yaakov, and they fell onto Yaakov Avinu's feet. So Paskinu Yaakov Ene, the Gemara says that Yaakov opened up his eyes after he was already dead. The Achich, and he smiled. This is the meaning of the pasuk in Tehillim Perek Nun Ches. Yismach Tzadik ki chazan nokam. The righteous man, the tzaddik, will rejoice because he sees revenge. His feet are washed in the blood of the Rasha. That pasuk is a reference to this story. At that moment, Rivka's nevuah was fulfilled. What happened with Rivka? And Parshas told us after Yaakov Avinu stole the brachas from Esav, Esav wanted to kill Yaakov, and Rivka told Yaakov to run away to Padan Aram. And she says, Lama eshkal gam shnechem yemechad. Why should I lose both of you in one day? That she was scared that Yaakov and Esav are going to get into a fight. Esav is going to try to kill Yaakov. Yaakov is going to strike back, and they're both going to die in one day. And like we said, we mentioned earlier in the Masechta, what was it about? About Yehuda with the condition that he made about Binyamin, about how his bones were rolling around, right? That a tzaddik's conditions are always met. So too Rivka's nevuah, even though it wasn't Mekuyim then, but later it was Mekuyim. That even though they didn't actually die in one day, they were buried in the same day because Esav died after he got bopped in the head. Good. So therefore, that nevuah was fulfilled, and that's the story of Yaakov's burial. So now, asks the Gemara, if Yosef would not have dealt with Yaakov Avinu's burial, would his brothers not have buried him? Why does Yosef get all the credit for burying him? It says in the Torah in Parshas Vayechi that all the sons took him to Eretz Canaan, so clearly they would have also dealt with the burial if not for Yosef. So Amru, says the Gemara, the brothers said, let Yaakov get this honor b'malachim by being buried by a king. Yosef is more than just regular people, since Yosef was a chashuv guy, he was a viceroy in Egypt. He had this kingship to him, so it's more chashuv for Yaakov to be buried by him than by us. Moving on in the Mishnah, the Mishnah said, "Mi lanu godol Yosef chulu." Who is greater than Yosef? Who buried Yosef? It was Moshe Rabbeinu. So Tanu Rabbanan. Now we're going to talk about Yosef's burial. Tanu Rabbanan, the Chachamim taught, come and see kama chavivos mitzvahs al Moshe Rabbeinu, how precious the mitzvahs were to Moshe Rabbeinu. Shekol Yisrael kulon is asku bebiza. All the Jewish nation were busy emptying out Mitzrayim of all their wealth. Before the Yidden left Mitzrayim, they went and borrowed from all their neighbors all of their gold and silver and expensive things, and they left Mitzrayim with them, and they all got rich. So while the Yidden were all emptying out Mitzrayim of all the wealth, the Hunisasik mitzvahs, Moshe was busy with mitzvahs. He was trying to get Yosef's body to take it out of Mitzrayim. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk in Mishlei, Shacham Lev Yikach mitzvahs v'geimer, someone with a wise heart will be hopping onto mitzvahs. So now about the story of how did Moshe find Yosef's body? How did Moshe Rabbeinu know where Yosef was buried? So Amru, they said like this: Serach bas Asher n'shtayra me'esei Adar. Serach, the daughter of Asher, was a remnant from that generation. She came down to Mitzrayim together with Yaakov Avinu and his family, and she saw Yosef, and she knew when Yosef had passed away, and she was still alive then. And Halach Moshe Etzel, so Moshe went to Serach, his great aunt, Amar La, and he asked her, do you know where Yosef is buried? Would you happen to know where Yosef is buried by any chance? So Amar La, she told him, the Egyptians after Yosef died made a metal casket for him, and they put it inside the Nile River. In order that the Nile should be blessed. And Halach Moshe, so Moshe went, he stood at the edge of the Nile. And Omar Lo, he says to the Nile River, Joseph, Joseph, the time has come, that the Eibishter has sworn, that I am redeeming you guys. And now the time for the swear that you made the Jewish people swear has arrived. Right, in Parshas Vayechi, before Yosef passes away, he made the Jewish nation swear, Vayash Yosef is Bnei Yisrael, and he told them, the Eibishter is going to remember you, and you're going to take my bones out of here with you. So then, Parshas Boi, when the Yidden are leaving Mitzrayim, Moshe goes and does this whole procedure. He says that the promise that you made us swear to you, the time has arrived. So if you appear, if you show yourself to me, good, we'll make good on the promise. But if you don't show yourself to me, we are absolved of your swear. So miyad, right away, itself, Yosef's coffin floated to the top of the Nile, and Moshe took it and they left Mitzrayim. Then says the Gemara, don't wonder, hey, stuff, how is it possible for metal to float? We have a story in Malachim Beis in the beginning over there, that a story of Elisha together with his students. Elisha had a student. They were standing by a river of water, and a metal beam fell into the water, and it was sinking. And the guy says to Elisha, "Aha, Adoni, whoa, my master! Behu shol, this beam that I had was borrowed, and if I lose it, I'm toast. I got to get this beam back." So also the man of God, Elisha, asks him, where did it fall? So the student shows it to Elisha. Elisha throws a stick into the water, and the metal beam floated to the top of the water, and he retrieved his beam. Then says the Gemara, we have a Elisha. Elisha, who was Talmid Shel Eliyahu, a student of Eliyahu, Talmid Shel Moshe, and Eliyahu was a student of Moshe, even though not directly, but everything that Eliyahu knew, all the Torah he learned came from Moshe, because Moshe is the teacher of all the Jewish nation. And Elisha, who's this already third link in the chain, Saf Barzel Mipan of metal, is able to float in front of him. He's able to make this miracle. For sure, in front of Moshe, metal could float, and that's how Moshe got Yosef's body back. Then Rab Nosson says that, no, a different story. Yosef was buried in the tomb of the kings of Egypt. And Moshe went and stood in front of the tomb of the kings. All the kings were buried together in one Indian over there, Amar, and he said, Joseph, the time that the Eibishter says that I am redeeming you has arrived. And the shvua, the swear that you made the Jewish nation promise, has arrived to be fulfilled. So if you appear mutav, good, and if not, if we are absolved of your swear. So at that moment, Yosef's tomb, Yosef's coffin itself shook. Moshe took it, and he brought it to himself. And they went out of Egypt with it, and it traveled with them in the desert for 40 years. And all those years that the were in the desert, there were two boxes. One was a coffin, Yosef's coffin, and one was the Aron HaKodesh, the Eibishter's Aron. And they were traveling right next to each other. The people that would pass by, the Jews in the desert, would say, why are there these, what's the point of these two boxes? What are these two boxes? So Amru, they would tell them, one is a box with a dead guy, and one is the box of the Shekhinah of the Eibishter. So then they would say, is it the way of honor to the Shekhinah that a dead person should go right next to the Shekhinah? So Amru, they would tell them, turning to Amud Beis, no, this is a real fitting match, because this one, the dead guy in the coffin, fulfilled everything that it says in this box in the Aron HaKodesh, which the Torah was in there. Yosef was Mekayim the entire Torah. So then we have the same question that we asked by Yosef, that if Moshe would not have dealt with Yosef's body, would the Yidden not have dealt with it? Why does Moshe get all the credit? Doesn't it say in the pasuk in Yeshua Perek Chavdala, that the bones of Yosef that the Yidden brought up from Mitzrayim, they buried in Shechem. So the entire Yidden took up Yosef's bones. So why did we need Moshe Dafka? And furthermore, even if the Yidden hadn't dealt with Yosef's body, would Yosef's descendants not have dealt with his body? It says in the pasuk by you Yosef that Shechem was the portion of the sons of Yosef. And they dealt with his burial in Shechem, so they would have taken him out of Mitzrayim. So Amru, just like we said before, the Jewish people said, let's be respectful to Yosef. That first of all, Yosef's descendants said it's better for many people to deal with his burial, Yosef than just us, our family. So let the entire Jewish nation. Vesu, and the Jewish nation said, Amru let great people deal with it, more than small people. So they let Moshe Rabbeinu do the honors of dealing with Yosef's burial. Then the pasuk that we just quoted, it says, Kavru b'Shechem, in the end of Sefer Yeshua, they buried Yosef in Shechem. So Ma'ishna b'Shechem, why Dafka in Shechem? Amr Rab Chanina, the son of Rab Chanina, said, Mishchem ginovuhu, he was stolen from Shechem, L'Shechem nachzir avedosoi, and to Shechem we will return this lost article, which is Yosef. That Yosef had not been back in Shechem since he was stolen by his brothers. We said yesterday that that Yaakov sent him from Hebron. He went to Shechem, and he asked the guy over there. He found a guy, and he told him they went to Doisan. Kitzer, he found out over there that his brothers the brothers had this idea in Shechem how they were going to kill Yosef. So Yosef was stolen Kivyachol from Shechem. So therefore, we bring him back to Shechem to make a full circle of the whole story. Then asks the Gemara Kosher Kraya Adadi. We have a steer in the Psukim Ksiv. It says in the pasuk in Parshas Beshalach, Vayikach Moshe Asmas Yosef Imay, that Moshe took Yosef's bones together with him out of Mitzrayim. Ksiv. However, it says in Parsha in Sefer Yeshua, like we just said, Asmas Yosef Sharhelo Bnei Yisrael V'Gomer, that the bones of Yosef that the Yidden took out of Mitzrayim, they buried in Shechem. So make up your mind, who took him out of Mitzrayim? Was it Moshe Rabbeinu or was it the Yidden? So Amar Rav Chanina, the son of Rav Chanina, says that Kol Eisa Davar, anyone that does something V'lei Gemara and doesn't finish it, Uba Achar Gemara, and someone else comes and finishes that act, Ma'ila Lavakasuv Al Shegemara Ki'ilu Asoy. The Torah considers the one that finished the action as if he was the one that did it itself. You got to get it past the finish line, or else it's not worth anything. And therefore, since Moshe Rabbeinu didn't actually bury him, he took his body out of Mitzrayim, but he wasn't able to bury him because Moshe didn't go into Eretz Yisrael. The Yidden were the ones that actually buried him, so they get the credit for burying Yosef. Rabbi Lazar says, not only that, someone who doesn't finish an action, a good action, we lower him from his greatness. It says in the pasuk, we dealt with these psukim 2 days ago about the story of Yehuda and Tamar, that it says that in Parshas Vayeshev, Yosef was thrown into the pit. The brothers wanted to kill him, and Yehuda said, "Ma what profit are we going to make out of killing our brother? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelim. At least let's make some money." So Yehuda had the intention of saving his brother's life. However, like Gemara, he didn't finish the action. He didn't bring him back to his father. He just made sure that he wasn't dead, but he didn't complete the good action. And therefore, right after that story, it says that Yehuda went down from amongst his brothers, and he married Bathshua, and then he had heir. You know the whole story with Yehuda, Tamar, and his children. Kitzer, but right, it says that he went down from amongst his brothers. By Yered Yehuda, they lowered him from his greatness. He used to be the greatest of the brothers, and then after they saw how distressed Yaakov was that Yosef was gone, so they lowered Yehuda from his greatness. Shmuel Bar Nachmani says that not only that, of someone who doesn't finish a good action, he's also going to bury his wife and kids. The Chsiv, it says in the pasuk, Yehuda's wife died, his two oldest sons died. Kitzer, it was all in the schus that Yehuda did not finish this great action. Amar Marav, that he was too weak. He wasn't strong enough to totally save Yosef's life. Amar Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, why was Yosef called bones in his own lifetime? Yosef tells the brothers before he passed away that you're going to take my bones out of Mitzrayim. So he's called Bones, but he's still alive. Why is he? It's sort of disrespectful that he's a guy who's still alive and he's calling himself Bones. So why was he called Bones? It was a discipline for this slight misdemeanor that he did not rebuke the brothers for not honoring his father. In the story of Yosef and the brothers, when they were coming and trying to get food from Yosef, and Yosef was gonna steal Binyamin. Kitzer, in the beginning of Parshas Vayigash, it says, "Vayemer Abdecha Avinu," that your servant, our father. They called Yaakov Avinu your servant, Yosef's servants. They didn't know who Yosef was yet. So and Yosef didn't interject. He let them say that Yaakov Avinu was Yosef's servant. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, some say was Rav Chama, the son of Rav Chanina. How come Yosef died before his brothers? Because he himself acted he held an authority position, a position of authority. He was the viceroy of Egypt, and we have in Pirkei Avos, Sotah Rabbanos, don't get into authority because it's very hard to stay moral and to have right to make the right decisions when a person's in a position of authority. I think it also says elsewhere that authority eats its inhibitors alive. Someone who's in a position of authority. It's very stressful. Maybe he died from overstress. Kitzer, he died the first because he had this position of authority. Now we're talking about the story of Yosef himself, Parshas Vayeshev, when he's brought down to Mitzrayim. originally as a slave. The Yosef who Yosef was brought down to Mitzrayim. Rabbi Lazar says, Rabbi Lazar, Hura, don't say that he was brought down. Ella Hoirid, read it that he brought down Mitzrayim. Shahirid, that he brought the Pare stargazers down from their position of greatness, that he was recognized as the greatest of all them, the greatest interpreter of the dream. So all the chevra over there who were into interpreting dreams, they were lowered. So Yosef brought Mitzrayim down. Potiphar, the officer, the servant of Pare, bought Yosef. So Amarav says Rav Sheknoi La'atma, he actually bought him for himself. Potiphar had a crush on Yosef. He wanted to engage in homosexual activities with Yosef. And Bo Gabriel was Sersoi, so Gabriel, the angel, came and castrated Potiphar. Bo Gabriel, so Meikorik. So how do we know that? Because originally he's called Potiphar, and in the end he's called Potiphera. This change of name from the word Pera, which means that he was castrated, is an allusion to this story. Then moving on in the Mishnah, who is greater than Moshe? That he buried Yosef, and who buried Moshe? None other than the Eibishter himself. And now we're going to talk about till the end of the Yamud today, till the end of the daf. We're going to talk about Moshe's burial, the story of Moshe passing away and his burial. So now we're talking about a story in Parshas Vayestano, where it says that Moshe says to the Yidden that he was pleading with the Eibishter to let him into Eretz Yisrael. And he was kept on asking the Eibishter again and again. And Elio. So the entire time, no, there's another story with Potiphar's wife. It was Kitzer, it was both of them, Potiphar and Potiphar's wife. Okay, so it says that by Vastanon, he said that he was pleading with the Eibishter to go into Eretz Yisrael. And Hashem said, "This is too much. You asked me too many times. Don't talk to me about this anymore." So we're going to darshan the psukim in Parshas Vayestano. So Amar Rab Levi says, Rab Levi, Berav Biser Moshe, he gave over a message to someone with the word Rav, and Berav Bisruhu, and since it was a slight misdemeanor, so when he was told something that he didn't want to hear, it was also with the word Rav. Berav Biser, he used the word Rav. He said Rav Lachem, the story of Kairach with the rebellion in Parshas Kairach. Kairach wanted to be the Kohen Gadol. He was already a Levi, and he wanted to be a Kohen Gadol. And Moshe said, Rav Lachem b'nei Levi, this is too much for you, O b'nei Levi. You guys are Leviim. You have wonderful mitzvahs. You also need to be the Kohen Gadol. So, and since he shouldn't have said that, because for character, it was a good thing that Kairach wanted to do more good things. So Berav Bisruhu, he was told, Rav Lach, it's been too much for you. You asked too many times to go into Eretz Yisrael. Another explanation is Rav Lach, it's too much for you. Rav Yesh L'cha, you have a Rav. There's another Rav. There's another leader. That Umanu Yeshua, we're talking about Yeshua, that the Eibishter was telling him that Yeshua is ready to start leading. The time for Yeshua's leadership has arrived, and you can't have two leaders at once. So it's time for you to pass away. You can't go into Eretz Yisrael because Yeshua has got to be the next leader. Davar Acher, another explanation. Rav Lach, it's much for you. Shalayemru Harav Kama Kosher V'Talmud Kama Sarvan. Stop asking me, because Hashem says I'm not going to listen to you, and I don't want people to say, because I'm not listening to you, and I don't want people to say that the master, me, the teacher, the master, the Eibishter is such a difficult guy, and the Talmud keeps on pestering me, asking me again and again, the servant, and I'm not letting him do it. So Rav Lach, I'm your master, and it's going to be a bad look for both me and for you. So stop asking. The Kol Kach Lama. How come, and why did Moshe, and we're seeing over here that Moshe's Midah Keneged Midah was so minute that he said Rav Lach, so because of that, Hashem's not letting him into Eretz Yisrael. How come Moshe gets such a big punishment? So Tanaz Rabbi Shmuel's Yeshiva taught that Lefum Gam L'Shifna, according to the camel, that's how much you could put on its back. It's able to you put on the camel however much it can handle. And Moshe Rabbeinu, who's this great guy, this big tzaddik, is able to handle, even this minute bullying from the Eibishter. Okay. Right, obviously, there's the famous vart over there that the Eibishter told Moshe. And Moshe stopped asking because he knew that if he would continue asking, the Eibishter would let him in. And Moshe and Hashem said, "You don't want to go in." How do I know that? Because you hit the rock and you stood up for the Yidden, and you would never leave your generation in the desert. Kitzer, maybe we'll talk about that another time. Maybe tomorrow we're going to talk more about Moshe Rabbeinu's passing. But yeah, the beautiful story of how Moshe didn't ask to go into Eretz Yisrael again because he knew that he would go in, and he never wanted to leave the flock. Okay. A pasuk in Parshas Vayelech. Vayemer Alei, Moshe says to the Yidden, Ben Me'ah ve'esrim shana anochi hayom, I am 120 years old today. So Shein Talmud Lemer Hayoim, why does the Torah have to say the word Hayoim? So what was the Torah saying? Hayoim Malu Yom Hayishnaisei. Moshe was telling the Eden that today is the day that my days and my years have been completed. To teach you Shakadosh Baruch Hu Mashlim Shneisem Shal Tzadikim. Hashem completes the years of the Tzadikim Miyom Liyom, from day to day, Umechodesh L'Chodesh, and from month to month. And like we learned earlier, that Moshe Rabbeinu was born on Zion Adar, and exactly 120 years later on Zion Adar, that's when Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. It says in Parshas Mishpatim that the Eibishter will fill the number of your days. Okay, another pasuk in Parshas Vayelech, continuing over there. Moshe tells Eden, I'm not able anymore to come in and go out, to go out and come in. So my Lotzis V'lavei, what does it mean that Moshe can't go out and come in anymore? So if you're going to tell me that Lotzis V'lavei Mamash, then it means he wasn't able to walk anymore. That's not possible. It says in Parshas V'zois Abrachol, that Moshe was 120 years old when he dies. And loy nos leichai, that his moisture strength didn't deplete for even a little bit. Siv, and it says in the pasuk another proof that he was able to walk. It says Vayal Moshe Arvis Moav al Har Navoi. Moshe went up from Arvis Moav to Har Navoi, to the mountain of Navoi, which is where he passed away. But Tanya, and we learned in a brayso that shtei Esrei Mailos Hayusham, that to get to Har Navoi was 12 steps. Upsad Moshe b'psia achas, and Moshe stepped them all in one step. Right, because it says that he went from Arvis Moav. We know that he was in Arvis Moav. Why does it have to say that again? Because it's coming to teach you that he went straight from Arvis Moav. One foot was on Arvis Moav, the next foot was already on top of Har Navoi. So what does it mean that he's not able to go out or come in? So Amar Shmuel Bar Nachmani, Rabbi Yonasan, Shmuel Bar Nachmani says in the name of Rabbi Yonasan, Lotzis v'lavei b'divrei Torah. I can't anymore go out and come in divrei Torah. Melamed, it teaches us that the gates of wisdom were closed for him on that day, the day that he passed away. Another pasuk in Parshas Vayelech. Vayelech Moshe v'Yeshua. Moshe and Yeshua went v'yisyatzvu ba'oil moed, and they stood in the tent of meeting in oil moed. So Tana, the Brisa taught that Oisa Shabbos, that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. That's why. So according to one opinion, Moshe Rabbeinu passed away on Shabbos, and that's why we say in the afternoon, Shabbos afternoon, we say Tzidkoscha, which is a eulogy for Moshe, Yosef, and David HaMelech, which were the three tzaddikim that passed away Shabbos afternoon. So Isa Shabbos, that Shabbos shall use Zugi Hoisa. It was the Shabbos of two peers. It was Moshe and Yeshua both had the leadership that Shabbos. Nitla Rishus Mizeh, the leadership was taken away from Moshe because he passed away. V'nitna Lizeh, and it was given over to Yeshua. Betanya Amar Rabbi Yehuda taught in the Brisa, Moli Mikra Kosov. If not, another thing, if not for that the pasuk would have said this clearly, we wouldn't have been able to say this ourselves because it's such a great thing. What is this that he's referring to? So he says like this: Heichon Moshe Meis. Where did Moshe pass away? B'chalkei shel Reuven. He passed away in the portion of Reuven. Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Shevet Menashe were on the eastern side of Eretz Yisrael. All the other Shvatim were in Eretz Yisrael itself. So Reuven and Gad were outside Eretz Yisrael, where the Edom were at that moment. So Moshe passed away actually in the Chelik of Reuven. The Chsiv, it says in the pasuk that where did Moshe pass away? Vayal Moshe Arvis Moav al Har Navoi. Moshe went from Arvis Moav to Har Navoi, and he passed away on Har Navoi, Mount Navoi. Unavoi and Navoi itself, B'chalkei shel Reuven Kaima, is in the portion of Reuven. How do we know this? The Chsiv, it says in the pasuk in Parshas Matos that Ubnei Reuven banu v'gomer v'es Navoi v'gomer, that the sons of Reuven went and they took their portion before all the other Eden on the other side of the Jordan River, and they went and they built a bunch of cities, and one of the cities they built was Navoi. So Navoi is in the Chelik of Reuven, so that's where Moshe died. Navoi Shasham Mesu Gimel Neviim Moshe v'Aaron u'Miriam, and it's called Navoi because 3 Neviim passed away there, Moshe v'Aaron and Miriam. Okay. However, Moshe cover, where's Moshe buried? B'chelkei shel Gad. He's buried in the portion of God. The Chsiv, it says in the pasuk in Parshas V'zei Sabracha, and Moshe's blessing to Shevet Gad. Vayar reish esloi v'gomer. Vayar reish esloi kisham chelkas mechayik saf, and that God decided to take their portion first before the rest of the Eden in Eretz Yisrael. Why do they want to take their portion on the other side of the Yarden? Because they saw that that's where the chelkas mechayik, the portion of the lawgiver, Moshe Rabbeinu, was going to be buried over there. So they took the chelik with Moshe's burial. And we're going to quote more psukim from the bracha of God in a minute. So Moshe is buried in the chelik of God, as we see from God's bracha, that's why he took that portion, because Moshe is buried there. And umichelke shel Reuven ad chelke shel Gad kama have arba milit. That and from the chelik of Reuven till God's chelik in the Transjordan, there was 4 mil. 4 mil is a big amount of distance. So Oisan arba mil, and those 4 mil, who brought Moshe from the chelik of Reuven where he passed away to the chelik of God to where he's buried. So Malamed, it teaches us that Moshe was placed in the wings of the Shekhinah. And the administering angels were saying, while Moshe is being brought from Chelik of Reuven where he passed away to the Chelik of God where he's buried, they were saying, Tzidkat Hashem asa u'mishpatav Yisrael, that Moshe Rabbeinu did the righteousness of the Eibishter and his judgment amongst the Jewish nation. This Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest dude. And the Eibishter was eulogizing Moshe, and he was saying, "Mi yakum li Miriam, who could stand up against the evildoers with me? Mi yisyatzef li, who's going to stand up for me in Pele Oven against those that do crookedness?" Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says, what was the Eibishter saying? The Eibishter was crying about Moshe. He was saying, "Mika chacham, who is like the wise man, umi yedei pesha davar, and who knows the resolution to anything? Who's able to figure things out like Moshe Rabbeinu?" Rabbi Yochanan said, Hashem was saying, "Hachokma me'ayin timatzei." From where can the wisdom be found? Wisdom has now passed away. Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. Rav Nachman said, "Vayomas sham Moshe v'gemer," that Hashem was saying, and Moshe died over there. And Vayomas comes from the word Vaymes. Woe is to us that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. Simalian says, Tosfos has two opinions who Simalian is. Either Simalian was a Shem Chacham, he was one of the Amoraim, or Simalian was the name of an angel. Says Pirush Rabbeinu Chananel is the Amri Malach. There are those that say that Simalian was a Malach, and he says, what was the Eibishter saying when Moshe was being brought on the wings of the Shekhinah from Nevoi to his burial? He was saying, "Vayomos sham Moshe," that Moshe died over there. Safra Rabbi the Israel, the great scholar of the Jewish nation. Tanya, we learned in the Brayso, Rabbi Lezer Agadolemer, Rabbi Lezer the Great. Rabbi Lezer the Great is Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus, the student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Lezer Agadol, he's also the teacher of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Lezer Agadol says, "Shneim asar mil al shneim asar mil keneged machane Yisrael." The entire Jewish encampment was 12 mil by 12 mil, a big square of 12 by 12 mil. And Baskel Mashmiya, there was a Baskel coming out that was able to be heard resounding around the entire camp of the Jewish nation. V'Imre was saying, "Vayomas sham Moshe safra Rabbi Yisrael," that Moshe has died over there, the great scholar of the Jewish nation, because the Eden didn't see Moshe passing away. He was on top of the mountain. They were on the bottom in their camp. So a Baskel came out and informed them that Moshe had passed away. However, there were those that say that Moshe Rabbeinu really never passed away. How do we know that? Because it says in Parshas V'Zayis HaBracha Vayomas Sham that Moshe died over there, and it uses the word Sham. Doesn't have to say the word Sham. It's an extra word. Ksiv Hasam, it says in the pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim. In Parshas Ki Sisa Vayihi Sham Im Hashem, that Moshe was over there with the Eibush there, and the word Sham is twice. Malala, and just like over there in Parshas Ki Sisa Imedu Mishame, she was standing and serving. He was serving the Eibush there. He was serving the Yidden, and he wasn't dead. He was on the top of the mountain. He wasn't with the Jewish nation, but he was serving the Yidden and serving the Eibishter. Afkan, so too over here in Parshas V'Zayis HaBracha, when it says Vayomas Sham Imedu Mishame, she's still standing and serving. And Chavra, this is the great lesson that we learn by Tzadikim. We're going to have again also at the end of the Masechta about how the famous word about how Rebbe didn't die because he has Zarei B'Chaim, that those that are continuing his legacy are doing the same thing that he did while he was alive, like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya Perek Chav Zayin of Igeres HaKodesh. Chavra, have a wonderful day. We will continue tomorrow with Daf Yud Daled.